So our first presentation investigates whether spoilers, that is, those consumers that share details of films or even TV shows to others that have not seen the show, might influence the number of consumers that subsequently want to view that film or show. Spoiler alert, the answer is not what you might think. And to share results with us today, we have Joseph Ryoo and Wang, both from Western University. Welcome, Joseph and Shane.
Thank you, Chris. It's our honor and a great opportunity to share our research finding and also with some practical implications here to everybody. So besides me and Joseph, this work is jointly work with CJ from University of Houston. Movie, interesting topic. Who does not like movie? Especially during this difficult time for all of us, maybe stay at home, watching some movies, at least can make us happy. Movie continues to become a very popular form of entertainment for consumers around the world. So the bad news is recent pandemic and a lot of theaters have been shut down from the early 2020. But now the US government in various states are currently coordinating, starting reopen the movie theaters step by step. As we know that James Bond is coming back. They just announced it. MGM announced it by the mid-November. It's coming back. Things are doing better. So a recent survey just to show us 75% of the consumers are willing to go back to the cinemas under the safety condition. Everything's health. They're happy to go back. On the other side, the bad pandemics actually shift our preference for mode of consumption. 32% of the consumers now they prefer to watch in digital copy, digitally. They want to subscribe at Netflix or rent or buy a digital copy. But regardless of whether consumers like us, we want to go back to the cinema or we want to get a digital copy, movie reviews still play an important role for all the consumers make purchase decisions. As you can see here, 44% of the consumers indicate that when they want to purchase a digital copy, and they rely a lot on the movie reviews. So movie review, similar as other parts review, is one type of the user-generated content. So one different aspect of the movie review that it contains spoilers. So which give away the plot information to the consumers before watching the actual movies. It's not the trailers, but the spoilers. So you can see here three largest, most popular platform for the movie review: IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic. They all contain spoiler reviews. And we find the data set we're studying, 1/3 of the reviews for movies that contain spoilers. They usually generated very early stage after movie release. So this becomes interesting research question is it good or bad for spoilers? On one hand, the spoilers can pose risk to the marketers because these spoilers can literally spoil the potential moviegoers of the plot. And maybe some of the moviegoers think, okay, this story is not very interesting. I won't watch it anymore. If that's the case, should firms try to discourage and try to control the spoilers? They have to stop it, ask platforms not do it. But on the positive side, the spoilers can actually pose opportunity for the marketers. Think about it. Spoilers convey a lot of important information about movie that inform the consumers of their quality before making the real purchase decision. It's like a quality control. You buy a product, you want to know the quality of this product. So these spoilers actually tell you some information about the quality. Actually, they can control the quality and reduce the risk of the uncertainty. If that's the case, marketing activities such as advertising, pre-release screening can generate spoilers. So here, we want to study this interesting research question is that, do spoilers actually harm for sales, their box office revenue? If so, how should markets react to these spoilers? Our data set containing about 4 years data from 2013 to 2017 from US released movie approximately 1,000 movies. We focused on the first 8 weeks of the daily box office revenue because by the existing research, 97% of the box office revenue was contributed by the first 8 weeks. Overall, we collected about 140,000 movie reviews from IMDb. IMDb among the most popular among these 3 movie review platforms. Interestingly, another interesting label here, you can see that in red, warning labels. Because IMDb policy these days, they require users to label their own reviews with warning. That means you can write a spoiler review, but you have to label it. If you do not do so, your account will be blacklisted immediately, and your review will be deleted, removed from IMDb. This actually will help the future consumers. They have their choice. They can either decide to, okay, I want to reduce uncertainty, I want to watch spoilers, or I do not want to watch spoilers. I just want to read some generic reviews. It's their choice. But we argue the point here is not only the number of the spoiler review matters. From the data, 1/3 of the reviews contain spoilers, but also the content of the spoilers. What actually the existing consumers they wrote actually matter the most. Think about the big data. These days, 80 to 85% of the big data are unstructured data. We would like to transfer this unstructured data to the structured data to create some new metrics to do better prediction. So here, we use the unsupervised machine learning called topic models to create a new marketing metrics for what's called spoiler intensity to help us do the better prediction for the box office revenue. Joseph would like to walk you through how these topic models works here.
Thank you, Shane. Again, in order to uncover what consumers are talking about in our sample of movie reviews, we apply a machine learning algorithm called topic modeling in order to uncover a small number of topics that summarizes the content of each of the movie reviews, both spoiler and non-spoiler reviews. In this slide, we present 2 movie reviews for one of our favorite movies, About Time. The non-spoiler review at the top, we find that its content can be summarized using 2 topics, acting performance and cinematography, while the spoiler review on the bottom can be summarized by the topics relationship and death. Intuitively, what we find is that spoiler reviews are associated with plot-related topics, and it's these plot-related topics that we focus on when we're measuring the degree to which consumers are talking about the plot of the movie. Going on to a further example for the movie About Time, consider 2 spoiler reviews. The highlighted text in the spoiler reviews are information associated with the topic of relationship. What we find is that the spoiler review A at the top has 55 words that reveal information for the topic of relationship, while spoiler review B only 29 words. And so when we're creating a metric to measure the spoiler intensity, or the degree to which the information in spoiler reviews that reduces plot uncertainty for consumers, we measure only the greatest amount of information spoiled. So in this case, 55 words. And this reflects the fact that once you're spoiled of something, you cannot go back. You cannot be unspoiled. And so by capturing the most amount of information spoiled, we avoid double counting and accurately reflect the reading behavior of consumers. So do spoiler reviews hurt or help sales? When we model the relationship between spoiler reviews, again, the metric we specified using a machine learning algorithm, and box office revenue, what we find is that a percentage increase in spoiler intensity leads to an average daily increase of $624 in box office revenue. In our data, what we find is that the average movie garners about $1 million per day. And so our results suggest that a 25% increase in spoiler intensity leads to a 2% increase in daily box office revenue. In order to ground our findings in real-life examples, consider two very popular movies in the United States, 50 Shades of Grey and 50 Shades Darker. 50 Shades of Grey is the original movie, while 50 Shades Darker is the sequel. And so these two movies feature the same starring cast members and also very similar production budgets. 50 Shades of Grey, $40 million, while 50 Shades of Darker, $55 million. Looking at the daily averages, we find that the original movie, 50 Shades of Grey, performed much better than the sequel. And so conventional wisdom in the movie industry might suggest that much less has been spoiled for the original movie. However, when we use our spoiler intensity metric, what we find is that much more has been spoiled for the 50 Shades of Grey, despite the fact that it has done better in terms of box office revenue. So why do spoiler reviews help? What we find in our data is that spoiler reviews have an uncertainty reduction role for consumers. Consider a widely released movie, a recent movie, Tenet, by Christopher Nolan, and an indie movie that is often limitedly released in the United States, Primer. With a budget of $200 million, Tenet is a mainstream movie that instills a bit of certainty for consumers. Consumers are sure that this movie must be of high quality. Whereas for an independent movie, Primer in this case with a budget of $7,000, limited release movies instill a greater amount of uncertainty in terms of quality because these movies are often experimental with their artistic nature. And consistent with the uncertainty reduction rule, we find that a 25% increase of spoiler intensity leads to a 1% increase in daily box office revenue for a wide release movie such as Tenet, but a much larger 7% increase for a limited release movie such as Primer. And consistent with this uncertainty reduction rule, we find that the positive effect of spoiler reviews vary for movies depending on their marketing mix. For example, the positive effect of spoiler reviews are greater for movies with less advertising. Again, movies with less advertising are much more uncertain in terms of quality for consumers. And finally, spoiler reviews have the greatest effect in the earlier periods after movie release when the uncertainty for a movie is higher than later periods.
Yeah, to summarize our findings, you can see that from the existing marketing research always suggests like the volume and the valence matters. Especially here, they think about like the movie studio and the theater should try to monitor the number of the reviews and all the star ratings to predict the future box office revenue. So here, we argue not only the star matters, not only the volume matters, the content matters. We can use machine learning to create some new metrics from this content. For the managers, we should try to go one step further to monitor the instructor data, and especially for those spoiler information. And to do so, think about it. By the existing, I think, the literature, 88% of the advertising budget is spent prior to the official release of the movie. So there's still another 12% we can do something. We can allocate this budget to generate word of mouth, including spoilers. For the moviegoers, like this will help them. For those with highly uncertainty consumers, we can try to help them make decisions. For this like a review platform, IMDb, Metacritic, we should still think about, they should still like understand online platform and manage these reviews. And they should not discourage or remove spoilers from this website. Just to let them to keep update and give warning labels. These warning labels for warn the consumers on the platform, they have their choice in the future customers, they can, okay, I want to read the spoilers or I don't want to read the spoilers. Just to put this warning label as like the controllers. So interestingly, we believe our finding does not only working for the movie industry. It should work for any relevant or related entertainment industry. For example, video game, as well as some novels. Once the new released, a lot of spoilers. So this result could be generalized, and the big goal here is using the current modern art, machine learning, and AI, try to read more from the unstructured content and transfer it to the structured data that help us do better prediction for the box office revenue. Thank you. We are open for some questions now here.
Thank you very much, Joseph and Shane. That's a really interesting finding. So we now have time for questions from our audience. You can type your questions into the Q&A tab, not the studio chat tab, and Joseph and Shane will happily respond to those. We do have a question right out of the gate from Arabella. She's asking about how you actually define a spoiler versus sort of, any other general descriptive information that's being provided about the movie. How did you go about doing that in your analysis?
Yes, that is a good question. How we define a spoiler review from, say, a non-spoiler review is that a spoiler review gives away plot-related information that reduces plot uncertainty for consumers who have not experienced the plot before. Now, the specifics of this information varies for different types of movies. And so how we address this in our research is to go for a data-driven approach. Again, Internet Movie Database has a policy where it requires its users to label their own movie reviews as a spoiler review or a non-spoiler review. And so essentially, we let the users themselves decide what types of information are a spoiler for the movie and what types of information are not a spoiler for the movie.
That makes a lot of sense, and that's actually a real advantage I can see with your research. So what about this question? Obviously, you found a real upside to the spoiling kind of information, but can you think of situations in which spoilers might be harmful to consumers or where they might not improve subsequent sales?
Yes, absolutely. I think all research have boundary conditions. And one of the important nuances with our research is that although Internet Movie Database, our setting, is the most popular review platform in the United States, IMDb.com is a pull platform. In other words, consumers that are interested more about movies that are playing in theaters are likely to voluntarily come to this platform to seek certain types of information. An instance where our findings might not be generalizable are push platforms, such as social media at Twitter and Facebook, where your friend might accidentally share some piece of information to you and you're not open to such information. We suspect that in such cases, when you're not willing to seek such information in the first place, that there might be different types of mechanisms at play.
So that's a really good point. So there's something about the consumer, they see the spoiler alert warning in IMD, and then they go ahead and make the choice to expose themselves to it. And that seems to be what's critical here, because the follow-up question to the one that I just asked you is, we see accidental leaks all the time of movie-related information. And is that the distinction between a spoiler in a leak, that you're not choosing to be exposed to it, or is there some other important difference that you can discuss with us?
Yes, absolutely. In order to go on further and explain, leaks are types of information that are released from the supply side by the movie studio themselves, either accidentally or maliciously by some insider that took part in the production of the movie. Whereas online discussions between consumers, the types of spoilers that we're studying, they're disseminated in a very controlled manner. Again, the spoiler warning labels, and there are also norms in other platforms where users warn each other before they discuss specific spoiling information. As you have described, leaks are very uncontrollable and oftentimes disseminated on social media platforms. And so I think that's the crucial difference between leaks and spoiler reviews, and why it's likely unadvisable for movie studios to experience such leaks.
Oh, interesting. So Elsa has a very technical question for you. She wants to know if you could just maybe briefly describe the specific machine learning technique that you used in your study.
So yeah, I can take that. So the machine learning techniques we use is called topic models. It's being widely used in marketing already. And basically, we want to identify some key patterns of these, like everybody's word of mouth, and try to summarize these key patterns. And this is basically we use for the topic models. We use a different language to describe the same thing, because all consumers see spoilers maybe differently, but can we able to label it in a sense, like an umbrella, to capture all the consumers their word of mouth differently in the same language? We use the like unsupervised learning called topic models.
And Harinder has a question about the moderation that you described, the boundary condition around uncertainty. So you found that your explanation is that that spoiler alerts help box office sales because it reduces uncertainty, and you made the argument that there may be more uncertainty around the indie film than sort of a high budget film, and so the effect was even stronger for that indie film. Can you just talk a little bit more regarding his question around what is really going on with uncertainty? Do you have any additional insights, behavioral or otherwise, about what might be going on there for the consumer and why that's so valuable?
Yes, absolutely. So again, past qualitative research and from personal experiences as well, what we find is that mainstream movies, often widely released with high production budgets, are often designed to cater to consumers in the middle or the general popular audience. On the other hand, independent movies with often low budgets, these movies tend to be very experimental with new or less well-known starring cast members, which relatively increase more uncertainty about the quality of the movie. And so what our results suggest is that for the types of movies that we're very uncertain in terms of quality, it's for these types of movies where we're more likely to turn to the content of spoiler reviews in order to, in a sense, decrease our uncertainty and increase our expectations of what we're going to get. And it's these things that help us make our purchase decisions and actually go see that movie in theaters.
Interesting. So you're getting some really nice questions that people are asking about the studies themselves. So Xiao Qi asks about whether it's possible that movies with maybe certain kinds of comments maybe even those with more spoiler types of comments that there would be just a greater likelihood of exposure. Maybe those rise up to the surface in this IMD system. Do you think there's any chance that might be going on in the background too, that this exposure, obviously people are still choosing to expose themselves to it, they read it, but I don't know if you can tell the difference between them getting to that screen and clicking through. Is that something that your research allows you to identify?
So unfortunately, we do not have access to individual level data. And so while it's interesting to possibly examine in the future how consumers are actually reading in terms of the sequence of the movie reviews and possibly address your question of maybe there are some comments that are receiving more attention from consumers than the others, we focus on the aggregate level, how much information on average are being revealed to consumers on the IMDb platform. And so on the average level, we still find that controlling for the number of spoiler reviews that a movie might get, we find that the content also plays a role, that the content has a positive relationship with box office revenue. And so consumers are reading the content of spoiler reviews.
Okay, and that makes a lot of sense to me. Go ahead, Shane.
Yeah, so and additionally, we believe that there's some maybe possible experiment we can like manipulate mutual with this empirical work, as Joseph mentioned. We can control everything, and also we can do some like experiments to actually monitor those participants, how they read reviews. They want to read the spoiler first or not. We can track their mouse and whether they move their mouse, and we can use a lab experiment to test that mechanism as well. That's something we already discussed for the future research pipeline.
Yeah, I think that's a neat idea. And maybe just to close, Arabella is giving you suggestion to link this to various sales sites. It sounds like you have your, I don't remember from the paper what your data where it came from on box office sales, but you're already linking it to specific sales figures that you're able to acquire about each of the movies, right? She's just suggesting things like Fandango, but you have actual ticket box office sales as well, right?
Yes,
Yes.
we do.
Okay. Okay, I think that these are great questions. It's super interesting research. I think we'll go ahead and close now. So thank you very much, Joseph and Shane. What a wonderful talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. And thanks for the great question from everybody.